Welcome to the Wright Isles. We've seen the voyagers of this small nation, the little cultural backbones of Wright that to this day are still voyaging. But Wright always had more airplanes. Let's travel back in time to what they had during the golden age of air travel. In 1942, Wright found itself in the middle of a national crisis. Japan managed to take their northern territories, placing them as close as 35 miles north of Wright. In a crisis such as this, something had to be done. There were two new bomber projects. The second one was intended to be a titanic long-range bomber, the likes of which the world had never seen before. But then, before both could be completed, it was already 1945. The nightmare of World War II has ended. The two bomber projects were no longer needed, but Wright continued developing them anyway, just differently. The Atlas was Wright's first long-range airliner. It entered service in 1946, the same year as the Constellation, which is its direct competitor. It was one of the two bomber projects for World War II. However, it missed the war and was redeveloped into an airliner. It was a reliable long-range workhorse, but on the other side of the same coin, it was a maintenance nightmare. In particular, servicing the third engine was difficult as it was mounted high on the tail. But three-engine airliners already existed before this, such as the Junkers 52. The Atlas was often nicknamed the Flying Sausage. This is due to its design, specifically the fuselage, which was disproportionately short compared to its width. In the end, it was still a reliable workhorse, comfortable even, thanks to its spacious fuselage. It's just that maintenance crews hated it. But more than that, it was proof that Wright is able to develop long-range airliners. The Atlas was a resounding success, selling a total of 650 units. And it laid the foundation for one of the most ambitious airliners that Wright would ever put in the sky. The Star Maiden was originally meant to be the massive long-range bomber planned by Wright. However, after World War II, they decided to convert it into an airliner like the Atlas. However, the project would stall. The Star Maiden suffered from cost overruns as well as delay after delay after delay after delay. It seemed like she would be cancelled, and Wright was ready to give up. But they didn't. The Maiden was a difficult and ambitious project, but does anyone ever get something right on the first try? The Atlas and the 1200 Voyager allowed Wright to remain competitive while they focused on the Star Maiden. And when she was finally ready and entered service in 1949, the world was stunned. The years of development had created something truly extraordinary. The Star Maiden was truly unprecedented in her size, luxury, and capabilities, becoming the ultimate queen of the Golden Age. She was a really elegant and beautiful airplane, captivating passengers and winning them over with her range and luxury. But she also pushed the aviation technology of her time to its limits, forcing manufacturers around the world to pay attention. Soon, they realized they were dealing with the perfect trio. In the beginning, the competitors gave little thought to the Voyager. After all, they had already shifted their focus on long-range airplanes, so the Voyager quietly dominated the regional market. By the time they realized what they missed out on, the Voyager was already the king. They had to quickly develop their own regional airliners in the hopes that they could oppose the 1200, but these attempts were largely unsuccessful. Then there's the Atlas, who kept the constellation at bay and was sometimes preferred by passengers over what the competitors had to offer. Despite that, they still found a way to invent new and colorful worlds from maintenance crews. Then there's the crowning achievement of the Wright Isles, none other than the Star Maiden. Due to her extraordinary capabilities, she absolutely terrified the competitors and made contemporary airliners of her time appear outdated. Due to the luxury and comfort that she offered, passengers regularly preferred flying on the Star Maiden than on other airplanes of the era. All in all, she was a major success, selling around 700 units in her entire production life. She was even modernized in the 1970s as the Turbo Maiden, given new engines and offered greater range. As jets took over the world, the future of the Star Maiden and the Atlas was uncertain. But the Maiden fared pretty well through the jet age, and there are still 5 that are airworthy around the globe, 3 of which are in Wright, with one wearing the Simple Planes Airlines 1950s livery, this one. Unfortunately, the Atlas got hit harder than the Star Maiden, with the last airworthy example being retired in 2022 and going to a museum. Just like the Atlas, the turboprop sister of the Star Maiden is no longer flying in the modern day. The last one retired in 2023, and it was owned by a foreign company and sent to the scrapyard. Very fortunately, it was bought by Wright and is now in a museum. While it's sad that the Atlas and the Turbo Maiden are no longer flying, their impact on the history of aviation in Wright will always be remembered for generations to come. And they laid the foundation for the next generation of airplanes that this little nation will put in the sky. The crisis of war brought a blessing in disguise. Even though the Atlas and the Maiden missed the war, they still went on to become successful commercial airliners. They raised the bar, showed the world what Wright was capable of, and even though their era is over, their spirit lives on, motivating the Wright of today to continue loving the sky and their airplanes, all in the name of the Great Voyage.